The blond man in a dark hood smiles vaguely, without showing his face, considering it something of secondary importance. He will be willing to risk everything, but he needs something in return. The little girl listens to every word, without missing a line. The man continues to ask what she could offer him in return. Charity is not his thing. It only takes a few seconds to think, after which the girl responds in kind. She would definitely do the same for a guy without even thinking about it. Realizing that the beauty could not deceive, the young man still notices that he needs at least some guarantees. You need to take an oath that would confirm all reality and correctness. Without moving a step, the guy continues to ask if the young lady is really ready to risk everything, as she promised. The interlocutor silently looks into the eyes. Blue eyes widen while the lady looks somewhere to the side, not concentrating on anything. It's easier for her to think everything over again, and only then answer. The castle palace has huge windows that seem to glow from afar. There is no light emanating, but the sun itself breaks through, giving all the clarity. A strange creature with a soft moss cap is jumping around the bed, making some sounds. It's not annoying, but a woman's voice says she's about to get out of bed. Without stopping, the pebble still insistently screams about something, while the lady finally begins to rise. It took more than 10 minutes. The hand reaches out to the pet's head and then gently ruffles the hat. The main character thanks for waking her up and not letting her sleep all day, and for all her business. Smiling her warmest smile, the blonde rejoices at the wonderful morning. She is always happy and grateful for every new day, realizing that this is not given to everyone. Quickly dressing and putting on her shoes, the beauty is already hurrying along the corridors of the estate. The shoes sparkle on the red carpet, creating contrast. Blonde hair blows in the wind due to the speed of running. Thoughts haunt me, because last night the lady again had a rather strange, unexplained dream. The girl is the only heir of the White family. She never had any brothers or sisters, even though she really wanted to spend time with people who loved and appreciated her. The heroine is Princess Rose White, who is respected around. She never made any mistakes or even minor mistakes, being diligent. Finally passing through all the halls, the girl stops near the main door. The huge gates, like the entrance to another world, swing open, allowing light to penetrate. Once near the entrance, the beauty looks at the castle from afar. This estate is considered to be the smallest in the world compared to any other created by princes and dukes. There's definitely no point in complaining, since this is the only property of the White family. If it weren't for this, then there would be nothing else, and Rose appreciates everything that is given to her in this world. Once outside, the girl runs through the streets in a hurry. One of the women says hello as she passes by in the pasture with her goats. Greeting her in return, the gentleman quickly moves to the place she needs. She finds herself in a greenhouse, where the most diverse flowers in this world are already in full bloom. The transparent ceiling allows the sun not to leave the lady. The blonde turns from side to side, trying to figure out where the person she is looking for is. She calls out to IKU, who still doesn't respond, although he clearly should be there. Finally it happens, and the man says he is here. Already on his way to the middle of the greenhouse, he asks to wait a little. The guy is only a few steps away, but stops to do what he has in mind. He needs to check the temperature of the magic stone. The girl agrees, and she turns her gaze to the apples lying very close. The hand imperceptibly and extremely slowly falls on bright red fruits that look very appetizing and juicy. It is indeed extremely difficult to resist. Bringing the fruit to her mouth, the girl carefully bites into the fruit, intending to eat just one so as not to spoil anything. She's clearly hungry. The face shows bliss. It is impossible to taste such yummy food anywhere other than this estate. The apples here are always the best. This variety of fruit is found very commonly in other places and is one of the most common in the area. However, something special is always added here, preventing anyone from bypassing the recipe. 500 years ago, the Kingdom of White was defeated by another empire. Its ruler stated that the king no longer had any rules and could not return it back even if he wanted to. The defeated leader did not want to give up, but he understood that there was nothing more to do. He followed into a snow-white wasteland surrounded by mountains with 50 loyal people. A huge kingdom turned into a small estate. Rose managed to inherit only endless snow, cold, and poverty. This is an extremely strange dowry, but it is impossible to choose another one under any circumstances. We managed to go through a very difficult path in order to somehow escape from eternal poverty. After all, after the king died, the girl became a full-fledged ruler who had to try to earn money by all means. Sunlight and fertility, which is usually used in other countries or kingdoms, were not available for use. In eternal snow, this is extremely difficult to do. The gaze switches again to the magician with the light. Hands skillfully wrap circles of magic, highlighting amazing effects. The man is truly very talented, and this was the only salvation for the entire small kingdom. If it weren't for IKU, everyone would simply die of cold and hunger. I didn't want to admit it, but this cannot be denied, because this man saved everyone around him. He was always the kindest and sweetest to any living creature, and especially to Rose. The warm gaze made the girl rejoice, despite all the problems that surrounded her. 500 years ago, when the king went to the mountains, 50 people followed him, but one of them was a magician. Exactly the one in question, because he is the strongest wizard raised by a dragon. He is the Archmage of Yggdrasil. His magical abilities are fantastic and impossible to digest due to the vastness of the action. He is a helper in the most difficult hours. This person is also the young lady's guardian and master. Even when the girl was very little, she was watched and trained, so that in the future it would be easier for her to do what she had in mind. We could talk for hours about how wonderful this person is, but my thoughts are confused. The girl stares openly, without even realizing it. IKU finally takes a break from what he's doing, and, as promised, is about to start a conversation. The stone was brought to the required condition after about 5 minutes, which passed unnoticed and extremely quickly. Looking at his interlocutor, he smiles his bright smile. Always treating him kindly, he gets what he wants, or rather, a good attitude towards himself in any case and from any person. A vague thought creeps into my head again. The blonde still knows nothing about her master. This makes you feel extremely strange, even though there is nothing shameful about it. Turning away and blushing, the lady tries to drive away her thoughts, because she should not think about anything else. Blue Eyes doesn't even know the age of her friend, but she knows for sure that he has an excellent salary. The blonde remembers her grandfather, but no matter how grateful he was to the wizard, he shouldn't have promised him half of the land's income. Iku's only drawback was his high demands and payment for services. The words are interrupted by a man who asks what the girl is muttering under her breath and why she is not talking to him. Turning to the guy again, the heroine militantly folds her arms over her chest, saying that she was simply lost in her thoughts. She asks if it's possible to reduce the salary at least a little. Not daring to contradict, he simply starts talking about it again. Perhaps, according to the hostess, he is not worthy of such a reward, but the guy was also left with nothing. By following the king, he lost absolutely everything. The young man carried out various assignments for the masters, was a teacher, as well as a guardian and protector. He is the representative of the young lady who is not satisfied with this answer. She furrows her brows, pretending that she doesn't care. Making a fake sad face, the man talks about how a wizard can work for such a paltry salary. After all, he might even resign. Without shutting up, Ika continues to talk about the legendary wizard with the kindest heart. Even a kind person can become evil if he is overtired, but the lady notices that he simply has no mercy. The peasants, watching everything, realize that the two are still getting along quite well. An hour later, the maiden is already in her estate. She has lost all hope of convincing the wizard, who every time finds excellent arguments in his defense. The pet pours tea into cups, carefully holding the teapot without disturbing the maid, who says that she sent all the invitations as she was asked. Smiling, the pebble moves away a little, allowing the lady to take a mug of warm tea in order to warm up after being outside. This often helps, because without it, you can't do anything. Raising the mug to her lips, the girl freezes, listening to the story. As expected from God among the imperial nobility, rumors of an excursion to the White Estate and Kingdom spread very quickly. Such news improves mood, as well as the desire to eat or drink something, helping appetite. Closing her eyes, the girl finally takes a sip, sipping the warming drink. Waving her hands, the blonde says that the nobles will never use four-legged animals for their own purposes, but the only way to get into the estate is the magical portal included in the invitation. Maybe they'll try, even if it costs a lot of money. There is still no choice, because without magic, it is quite difficult to cross the mountains that surround the kingdom on all sides. Pedigree is just a name, but the symbolism still won't go anywhere without any rights. The people of the royal family are scattered everywhere after what happened once upon a time. Persons will be ready to pay even taxes on the pedigree, just to preserve the symbolism of the royal family. In a noble society, this is considered prestigious and helps to achieve goals. It would be better to set restrictions so that you can only buy what you need in the White Kingdom. Throwing back her head and listening, IKU notices that God's entrepreneurial acumen is terrifying, but smiling, the girl says that the magician's greed is no better. Folding her arms, the blonde turns up her nose, because thanks to the bloodline tax and the invitation she sold, she at least managed to survive and save her people. Leaning back in her chair, the beauty thinks about something, but then notices that there is still not enough money, and this is definitely not enough for the kingdom. Almost crying, she lies down with her head on the table next to the pet, who tries to stroke her head, calming her down. IKU grins, reminding the queen not to forget to pay him his salary on time. Getting up so as not to look so damaged, the girl asks, clarifying whether there is definitely some other way to get money. The pebble looks at the two, making some sound. The wizard seems to be remembering something. Recently, he has heard curious rumors that people from different kingdoms are traveling to the mountains near the estate to mine and search for treasures. As she asks again, the heroine seems to remember something. It seems unreal, but perhaps these are the same rumors about the diamond mine that she heard about a long time ago. Propping her face with her palm, the blonde asks again, because she also heard about these diamonds. But then everyone agreed that these were just stupid rumors, unsubstantiated. As if giving hope, the guy turns around, continuing his story. As it turns out, these rumors are not entirely groundless. Someone said it, but it's real. Looking out the window, somewhere into the distance into the mountains, the wizard says that recently there has been a growing place in the mountains where the wave of mana is growing. This doesn't just happen. He was concerned about this, but he never studied exactly what this wave could bring to the kingdom. The words are interrupted by a girl standing nearby. A bright, greedy fire, as if by itself, lights up in the eyes of the young lady. She chuckles quietly because suddenly there are actually diamonds out there that could be obtained. This is a chance to get rid of poverty and live a normal life. There's a blizzard and snow outside, which creates the worst weather in this world. Such phenomena are typical for this kingdom, but sometimes things go too far. 3 people scream wildly, trying not to hurt each other. They went to the mountains, but failed. They should run as fast as they can, without looking back, in order to save themselves and not miss their chance. Trying to escape, the men slip through the snow and ice, although all attempts are futile, given how terrible the weather is, which makes it impossible to do absolutely anything. The darkness seems to take over everyone around. Just a black silhouette hangs over poor people who no longer know what they should do and how exactly to act right now. Blue eyes, like lanterns, look out of the darkness. The evil look does not want to come to terms with anything, especially the fact that they dared to enter its territory. Some kind of strife begins near the castle. A young voice asks if the lady is really going to leave the white's possessions in order to go to certain death. With her hands on her hips, the maid asks where exactly the girl is going. As a gentle reminder, she says that outside this territory is extremely dangerous, so you shouldn't go anywhere. The only answer is silence. They put food in the bag that will help them survive, because this will definitely be enough for the duration of the trip to the mountains. The next step is to put the pebble into the bag, carefully placing it in place and not allowing anything to get wrinkled. He wants to go with the princess. Carefully pulling out the pet, the girl puts it back on the ground. He cannot go with her on such a dangerous journey, given that the baby is still very small and will not be comfortable for him. Picking her friend up again, the blonde brings him closer to her face, smiling. She promises that she will return soon and everything will be fine, as before. You won't have to wait long, but poverty will end. Turning to the maid again, she asks not to worry. Arthur will also go with Rose, thereby helping and protecting her if anything happens. Margaret shouldn't stop the couple. Arthur is a knight and bodyguard of the White family. The brunette bows his head, promising that he will take full responsibility upon himself, not forgetting to take care of things and the queen herself properly. Just about to point at the blonde, the girl is interrupted. The maid asks if the mistress really wants to get rid of this greedy wizard, so they take him to the mountains. Without reacting at all, but only laughing, the magician turns to the lady, who asks if he can feel where exactly the place with a bunch of diamonds is. A satisfactory answer is exactly what I wanted to hear. Special minerals, such as gemstones, contain mana. All of them are buried in a deep hole, and because of this, a strong magical wave can form, helping to reveal the places. From the location, according to instinct, it is located somewhere in the middle of the mountain range in one of the caves. Feeling joyful, the girl, full of determination, says that she should move forward right now. After many hours of travel, the girl closes her eyes, trying not to laugh hysterically. The blonde calls IKU to ask him what he did. There are no treasures anywhere. The cave is completely empty. The man squints, trying not to show his nervousness. He has done something irreparable, because now all the anger will fall only on him. Hopes are not justified, and this cannot but sadden everyone around, except Arthur, who remains cold-blooded. Something white and moving can be seen from the darkness. A small animal comes out of the darkness, making some sound. All three freeze, because no one understands why there is a white dragon cub, which, as we know, is extremely dangerous. In all legends, dragons have always existed. An ignorant and cruel dragon who wants to kill, and a man who resists with all his might, fighting him. In order to become a real hero from a simple immature nobleman, the man decided to kill the cub and return, giving himself the title of Dragon Slayer. Everything seemed quite logical. They say that later the fairy tale ended. The enraged dragon burned the king along with the entire kingdom, leaving behind only screams, fire, and ashes, which turned out to be the remains of the city. Frowning, Rose tries not to get too caught up in her thoughts. She thought that dragons were just some kind of legend, and even more so if it also spoke about their descendants. Putting his hand to his face, in despair, the magician realizes that they are all in trouble. The law to protect baby dragons has not been repealed, and this could have dire consequences. The little dragon, making sounds, grabs the dress of the princess, who lifted him into her arms. He presses closer, while IKU fearfully asks to let the animal go. Pretending that she doesn't care, White Jr. says that she wouldn't do anything bad to the dragon. However, the problem is different. If a hatchling dragon smells it first, it will chase the person and smell it 1,000 miles away for the rest of its life. Not going to give up, the girl says that she can't let this happen. If the baby cries, his real mother will hear and fly in. Everything is quite simple, but it is not clear what to do now. Smiling nervously, the guy remembers that a wizard who inherited magic from a dragon is like a protector for dragon cubs. IKU is unable to touch the babies because he took an oath under his real name. Arthur, scratching the back of his head, says that if he, like a knight, touches the animal, he will be able to find the way to White Manor and will follow the man for the rest of his life. Breaking into a scream, the girl accuses the guys of being cowards. Pretending that they do not understand anything, the servant turns away, smiling, as if not hearing the accusation. The conversation is interrupted by the cub, who is gnawing on the beauty's hair. The heroine, as if addressing the dragon, asks if he is hungry, realizing that there will be no answer, and this is a rhetorical question. Approaching the couple, the wizard asks to look at the dragon again. He needs to understand something without any physical contact, so as not to spoil anything. Already squatting, the blonde begins his analysis, during which he finds out that the molars are already there, but the fangs have not yet formed. In human height terms, he is about 3 years old. He was not properly looked after, so the baby cannot speak. Looking down, the girl becomes despondent. She can't believe he was abandoned like that. But even stranger is that she feels sorry for the baby despite his origin. Without thinking for a second, the beauty follows another strange impulse. Hands reach into the bag into which food and water were previously placed. Dropping down next to the magician, who looks at his companion in surprise, she holds out the sandwich, letting the dragon smell it before eating. It's as if she's asking if he's right for him. Carefully examining what is offered, the baby, making a sound, turns away in the other direction. He doesn't seem to like sandwiches, so without intending to eat anything, he wants to stay hungry here. Raising his hand, the blonde freezes the food, saying that this species only eats frozen food, no matter what exactly it is. The little dragon sits and enthusiastically eats food, which is frozen, with helmets of ice lying around him. The lady orders IKU to continue making provisions, while Arthur asks where the provisions are going at such a rate. Finishing the meal, the baby continues to smile. Sitting down next to her, the blonde asks if the person who fed her is a good person. He should tell his mom and dad that Lord White is good-natured. The baby climbs into a hug, not allowing him to escape, although the heroine puts up slight resistance. He may not have known it, but the man is cold because of his abilities. He can't be a formidable dragon because he is so cute. Thoughts are interrupted by a man who asks him to stop and return to the castle with Arthur, while the magician visits his parents. The dragon, who is the owner of this mountain range, may simply become angry with the entire kingdom due to a misunderstanding. The girl jumps up, asking why the guy is going to go all alone. The answer is simple, and it is yes. White dragons are quite warlike, so it is worth settling everything before the kingdom is in great danger. Bowing down, the young man asks for forgiveness for putting the girl in danger. This doesn't look like the work of the best wizard, so he should have been more careful. The blonde freezes. She doesn't know what to say, even if many thoughts fill her head and mind in general. She has nothing to forgive her friend for, but his words cause concern. The hand lying on the dress itself clenches into a fist. Mild anger overtakes, leaving no trace of the necessary emotions at all. The girl is determined, therefore, seeing how Aika is about to leave. She grabs his robes, as if hugging or stopping him so that he stays and listens. The look is hard, while the lady says that she is really his mistress, which means he is obliged to take her with him. She will never allow a man to deal with everything on his own. Without expressing any emotions, the young man just sighs heavily. Such pressure is not subject to any appeal. It sounds strange, but he agrees. Smiling a nervous smile that expresses the whole situation, the guy turns to the brunette standing next to him, who feels nothing about everything. Pretending that everything is fine, the wizard agrees to do as the princess wants. In the case of an agreement, the girl is obliged to stay as close to him as possible, otherwise he will change his mind. Strange sounds are coming from the cave. The darkness is mesmerizing, while a blonde head with a menacing gaze appears from there. A voice calls out to Yggdrasil. In response, only a quiet answer is heard, which confirms the thoughts. An ancient dragon steps onto the ground, clearly unhappy with the current situation. The one who has acquired the 3 heads of Rednia turns to the lady standing behind the archmage. He must find out why she ruined everything. The gaze expresses darkness, while the dragon breaks through the inside of a person. She dared to awaken him, interrupting his sweet sleep by touching the child who was in the cave. Trying to argue, the girl suddenly intervenes in the conversation, realizing that they are addressing her specifically. She stutters, but tries to explain that they weren't trying to touch the baby. The sounds become louder because the beauty is being interrupted. Fear spreads throughout the body as the eyes widen with a gripping sense of horror. Instead of a human face, there will be a dragon's face. A scream mixed with a roar spreads throughout the room, echoing. The princess dared to contradict even without the slightest fear. The deeds are unforgivable, so the simple option would be to show more strength for respect. The paw with claws contracts to release the fuse. Pieces of ice fly towards the mistress, which line up in an invisible ladder, encircling the body, enclosing it in a cold vice, not letting go for a second. The enraged roar is heard even louder, possibly spreading across the entire mountain range. The humanoid creature looks like a whirlwind, around which there is only ice, taking lives. Hiding her face, but at the same time trying to see something, the girl understands that it will be extremely difficult to convince and ask for forgiveness. Rose's words mean nothing at all. Suddenly changing the topic, the girl stammers. She asks what it is, without giving any precise definition. A hand with claws reaches somewhere to the side. Freezing, the blonde stares to the side. There is something over there, but I can't formulate it. You just have to look at what's happening. The lady whirls past the standing people, who are all in wild confusion. The icy wind remains a light trail. Still unable to express her thoughts, the lady looks at her cub, who is sitting right in front of her. It was to him that it was worth hurrying so much. Folding her hands, the woman is touched by how sweetly her child sleeps, like an angel. Tears of tenderness freeze in the eyes, while those who come stand still the same, asking questions in their heads. Realizing that everything is strange here, the beauty tries to explain the situation. For several days now, the dragon could not sleep due to incessant crying. Day and night, screams were heard that pressed on my ears. The girl did not manage to get enough sleep during her 3 years of age. Now her baby is finally sleeping soundly and sweetly without any obstacles. Moving back a little, the princess asks Ika if this man really is a dragon. She's quite young for a mountain range mistress, but it's true. Turning to her companions, the blonde says, "Thank you for taking care of her child. She is a snow-white dragon and the mistress here. She inherited these properties from her mother." Suddenly understanding, the man says that this is Anastasia's daughter. He asks for forgiveness for the fact that they invaded the mountains and broke the law, thereby making a mistake. Rose just frowns, because she should go looking for treasures, not be nice. Ignoring all the words, the beauty runs up to the princess, asking if she is the person who helped the dragon sleep. The girl introduces herself as White, who is a white lord. Smiling, The blonde notices that the name is exactly the same as her property. She would like to stop by for a visit if it is near the White Mountains. Exchanging glances with her friend, the girl wants to say something, but it seems that there is no choice. This is more of a necessity, and both understand it even without any words. Holding the baby in her arms, the lady examines the palace from afar. She can't believe that such a beautiful place has been just over the mountains all this time. Smiling a nervous smile, but not turning to Ika, the lady asks if bringing the dragon was a good idea, but they had no choice, so it's true. There is a tea party in the garden, to which the dragoness is invited. She remembers something, saying that her mother mentioned that there was a small village in the White Mountains. Virgo never realized how wonderful this place was because she was never told enough. The smile falls from Rose's face, because for some reason her pride is clearly hurt. Bowing her head, the blonde says that because of the child, she had no time for anything. As an adult, the lady tried to protect her inherited possessions and raise her baby. Ika turns to the lady, reminding her that this is why he knows that it is better not to touch the baby dragon, as it is a written rule. Snow's husband is quite calm and good, but he is often simply not at home because of everything that has happened. It should be added to this whole picture that the man is not interested in either her or the child. Hechel gains knowledge in his sleep, but since he couldn't sleep all the time and cried, his development is so poor for 3 years. The girl was very worried about her son's condition. While thinking about something, Rose realizes that as the owner of the mountains, the beauty looks absolutely harmless at first glance. She might be able to help with your sleep problem. Not believing his ears, the dragon asks if they will really help her, to which he receives a positive answer. Ika glares at her ward as if asking her to stop. Pointing his finger at the magician, White says that this is a professional who knows absolutely everything about raising, especially dragons. The man covers himself with paint. Already literally crying with joy, the lady agrees to everything, so she repeats what a kind lady she is. Rose has just one request. The territory is relatively small, and therefore the girl would like to use the land in the mountains to expand. It won't affect Snow's house, but it will help the people. Grabbing the girl's hands, the dragon agrees, and also promises to give diamonds and more. The work will be done in the best possible way for both parties. The baby dragon's mother turns to the side, rocking her sleeping baby in her arms. Ika, without letting it show, calls her mistress to inform her of something important. Almost nervously, but trying to hide it, the guy reminds that Hechel will need more than 400 years to become an adult and fully stand on his feet. Not going to back down, White says that she doesn't want to be raised by a dragon either, but there's no need to be discouraged. This could ruin the entire perfect plan. Smiling and turning her gaze back to the owner of the mountain range, the blonde says that even if the magician does not look like a guardian, he very well can become one. Moving away the mug of tea, the girl again asks for help, looking into the guy's eyes. He, in turn, leans on his palm, sighing heavily, but agreeing. The best argument is that the country's treasury will be full. Only 3 months have passed, but success is clearly visible. The boy has already gone to kindergarten and brushes his teeth on his own. Snow smiles, saying that she doesn't remember the last time she slept without worry. She should thank everyone. The baby also learned how to quickly transform into a human. Now, being surrounded by people like him, it is impossible not to be happy. Conversations and games between children are one of the cutest things to watch. Snow's friend wants the child to go to kindergarten soon, and for this, there is also a reward. Hechel is a very good child who learns quite quickly. She was in a hurry to see him, so she could not contact him while he was feeling just great. A woman with blonde hair asks about kindergarten. Obviously, this was a human endeavor, but it's a good decision. Touching her son, the girl notices how cute it is. Stopping looking at everyone around her and her child too, the lady closes her eyes in complete bliss. Previously, she could not even imagine that she could decide to do this. The golden dragon, Go Gold, agrees. She also did not expect such a turn, and did not know that she would have to learn how to raise her own baby. Snow's rest is interrupted. A friend reminds of the past, which certainly should not have been forgotten, especially in their situation. Turning to the lady, the blonde reminds her that there is nothing good about knowing about dragons. Everyone is afraid, and does not find anything good in individuals. Interrupting her worries, the beauty says that she agrees, and was also worried at first, but here people treat everyone without hostility and discrimination. Smiling, the dragon remembers Rose. Perhaps such a society is here precisely because such a sweet girl like White Jr. rules here. Memories plunge into the most pleasant times, when the lady tried to help at least with words. She always said that everything was fine, because Snow became a mother for the first time. Dragons, like people, are not perfect, and that's okay. My lord's words calmed my mother enough that she finally stopped worrying too much. Ida is not very impressed with this tirade. A blonde baby crawls up to the sofa and calls his mother. He is too cute, but still very small to climb onto the chair on his own. Snow picks up the child and hugs him like his most valuable treasure. Turning to her friend, she says that they both like this place too much. Because of everything that happened, the girl's outlook on life changed too much, and therefore she decided to stay and live in the kingdom. The interlocutor's face expresses shock. It was night outside. The dark sky, as if someone had covered it with a blanket, does not allow the light to break through. The bright moon is surrounded by many stars. Ika has been too busy doing paperwork, but he doesn't have time to think about how tired he is. Some things need to be done right now, no questions asked. The hand barely holds the pen, unable to do normal work due to extreme fatigue. The man continues to diligently write something. There is a rustling sound behind the door that attracts the blonde's attention. He looks up at the door and hears a woman's voice asking permission. The lady stands right in front of the entrance, holding a tray with a glass and some other food in her hands. She asks again, clarifying whether the teacher is definitely in the room. The voice trembles a little, but being in a good mood, the guy allows him to enter, but asks for double payment. This is for more hours of work, and even if Rose does not agree, she has no objections or arguments. Smiling, the girl asks what the double fee has to do with it if she just came to visit her friend. After preparing the goodies, she also brought the expensive dark moon wine, which is a favorite. Leaning over the table and holding out his hand, the young man still does not back down, saying that he is looking after the child, but also meeting other people. These are all additional hours of work. He wanted to calmly raise dragons, but he certainly didn't think that the lady would dare her own teacher to do something like that. There is no room for weakness, but this is too much. Turning around to leave, the young man announces that he just wants to have dinner, but if questions arise, then he should wait until the morning. He's really angry. Sighing and resigning herself, the maiden begins bidding. The first offer is 40 coins, which are outbid by the price of 50, and instead of 45, they sound 50 again. Angry, the girl agrees, but she needs him to open the door. Finally, a miracle happens, and the guy opens the door, and a bright light appears from the office, penetrating into the corridor, in which only a few candles are burning. Appearing in the doorway, the magician smiles, and, as if surprised, notices that they brought him his favorite wine. This is called the good education he gave. Making a dissatisfied face, Rose reminds that this is just a glass, not a bottle. The praise comes quickly, but it's not what she wants to hear. It's not just grape juice. Everything has changed. Sitting down on the chair again and folding his hands on the table, the man, realizing that this is a bribe, still agrees to listen to the mistress's wishes. Her sincerity won his heart. Stuttering a bit, the blonde begins to speak because she really needs to be introduced to the familiar court. Such a request cannot wait too long. Finishing her sentence, she notices that the guy is not listening to her at all. He looks somewhere to the side, expressing extreme contempt or something even worse. A sarcastic tone reveals true intentions. Little Milady and the court will be the best couple. He promised to respect Rose's tastes, but this is too much. A scream erupts throughout the room when the girl says that this is not a date. If the domain is going to be expanded, as well as the empire, then equipment will be needed. Even in a big city, it's difficult to find a person who knows about fossils, and even more so in this village. Thinking, Ika would like to be able to train and raise such a craftsman, but the DVOP is very capricious, and recommending such a person is not in his competence. Perhaps he is even more capricious than the dragon, and this will be much more difficult. The man is a jack of all trades, but pickiness takes its toll. If you don't like the case, then nothing will happen. Suddenly realizing that the question here is money, the young man asks if the girl is going to take him for money, but the answer turns out to be positive, because this is part of her brilliant plan. If you offer money for his services, then you can learn something new. The kingdom will become special and will prosper for centuries. Without saying a word, the magician just smiles. He is not the best conversationalist in this regard, but he can't help it if the princess wants this and nothing else. Leaning back, Ika agrees and then asks to set the table. Insanely joyful, the girl almost jumps with happiness and thanks her friend. Turning towards the exit, She quickly says goodbye and says that she is going to go to the blacksmith shop in order to talk with Khan about further cooperation and work. Almost disappearing behind the oak doors, the blonde turns around and, without ceasing to smile, says that Ika is the best. She always wants to say exactly this in a fit of emotion. Smiling back and leaving this remark without any answer, the guy only looks somewhere into the distance, where the girl's figure stood a few seconds ago. The gaze drops somewhere down. Unreasonable sadness catches you by surprise, without warning you of anything at all. It's not the best way to reminisce, but it happens. A small blonde child stands with tears in his eyes and looks at the young man. The girl asks why Ika doesn't want to play with her or teach her anything. Smiling again because he was able to remember, the blonde chuckles. Such a little milady managed to grow up so quickly in such a short period of time. Looking out the window at the moon, which is still hanging in a bright circle in the sky, as if chasing, the man notices how quickly time passes in our years. A scream is heard in the castle, filling the entire space. A male voice, belonging to someone clearly impatient, asks when everything will be ready. If you add up all the money sent, you can build 6 small kingdoms. The amount should be enough for all expenses. Such ignorance is unacceptable, so the servant bows, asking for forgiveness. The guy is already tired of being careful about the Pope. A strong army is needed, without the support of the Church, in order to take control of the country and power as a whole. Even if the Lord is worried about Papa Lyrian, it makes absolutely no sense. After accusing a man of blasphemy, it is the king who will become the messenger of God. It doesn't matter how strong the empire is, if there is no support from the population, then it simply means the end of everything. The guy orders the servant to stay nearby until the process is completed. Soon the whole world will be at the feet of the emperor, and no one will be able to prevent this. If a person's patience runs out, he will simply end the man's life. So if he wants to survive, he should remember this. The guy folds his hands on top of each other, trying hard to express something. Jim's patience does not last forever, and the operation cannot take several years. There is no strength to watch the kingdom grow without permission, which would need to be obtained. The hand, clenched into a fist, hits the table with a roar. If the monarch had learned about Yggdrasil's secret recipe for creating the golem, he would not have had to endure a savage humiliation unworthy of him. The guy gets up from the floor and reminds us that often no one leaves their native lands. To obtain the necessary information, this would probably have to be done, and perhaps more than once. Turning to the aquariums with jellyfish, the young man in the raincoat doesn't seem to be listening, but simply turns a deaf ear. He needs a spy for the White Kingdom. The forge has its own work going on. An iron hammer strikes a molten element. A rough voice realizes that something is wrong here and asks to add more fire, because the temperature is dropping. 2 men, one of whom is clearly elderly, are working on something. Such work is usually poorly paid, but people enjoy their work without any buts. One of them pays attention to something nearby. The gaze switches in attempts to find the source of the strange sound that attracts other people. You have to lift your head, and finally the target is discovered. An eagle, covering the sun with its wings, flies directly over a forge with an open roof. The next second, a rolled-up package with a scroll falls into the hands of one of the workers. It is immediately obvious that the paper is all densely written due to the amount of information on it, which is probably valuable. Opening the scroll, the man squints, trying to read the small handwriting. The letter was sent from the province of White. The person who wrote it was none other than Yggdrasil. The package said that all gnomes, including Knocker, were invited to the province of White. They are already expected, and it doesn't even matter when they arrive, because the most important thing is that the invitation is accepted. They promise endless access to potato tincture. The blonde arrived to Miss Snow, who asked her to come to announce some important news. Holding the pebble in her hands and gently stroking it, she asks what's the matter. The girls, smiling, finally decide to announce their decision. They thought and realized that it was better for them to live in Veta. There are better conditions here both for them and for the children who will really need it. Freezing for a split second, Rose would like to agree or say something, but switching to another topic, she asks, a little surprised, who it is next to her friend. Greeting the queen, the lady introduces herself as Ida. The friend is really interested in Veta, and since they are expanding their territory, it means they could allocate a place for dragons to live. Exchanging glances with Ika, who arrived just recently, the girl tries to say something or somehow object, realizing that they have not planned all this yet. They don't have the means to finance all this. Handing out a piece of paper, Ida announces that the cost of construction is entirely on her. Asking if this will be enough, she doesn't even notice how Rose's eyes light up with a greedy light. Freezing in their tracks, the couple notices that the Golden Dragon really has a lot of money. This is definitely an offer you can't refuse. It's worth making the right choice. Looking down and then closing her eyes, the girl thinks about something. In their kingdom now, they not only have a dragon kindergarten, but also dragon residents. It may be that they simply cannot cope. Immediately finding a solution, the magician suggests stopping sending invitations to the imperial nobility. They have enough money, which means there's absolutely no need for extra attention. Changing the subject, Yggdrasil talks about the invitation he sent to the dwarves. Virgo should not hope for any understanding, because the baby, most likely, simply will not come. A portal opens from above, directly above the heads of the couple, which glows with an unreal light. The bright blue hue makes it clear that someone has arrived. A characteristic scream overtakes, causing your ears to shrink. A bunch of dwarves fall one after another, on top of each other, forming a pile of people. It turned out that not only one or two people decided to come, because almost everything that exists is located here. One of the youngest makes an incomprehensible sound due to the fact that someone from above pressed his hand, thereby ruining everything. They are finally here, which means the robot promises to move forward. Smiling friendly, Rosa, like Ika, tries to win over the guests. They don't want a fight or misunderstanding, so they should just greet the guests. Interrupting any words, one of the arrivals begins to run into the guy. He calls out to him, calling him in an unforgivable and rude manner, beginning to be indignant. Obviously, he cannot believe that the wizard summoned them in such a terrible form. This is dangerous, and no one thought about it. Suddenly, the entire space was distorted, and reality changed. Without ceasing to smile, the magician asks for forgiveness for such a dangerous invitation and for the not smooth transfer, which caused strife. Without stopping, Mr. Knocker asks if there will be any more apologies. Realizing that such a skirmish could escalate into something worse, the blonde decides to do something to end this. However, everything turns out to be not so good. The golem smelled something, while the lady herself asked where it came from. Boopy takes off and rushes somewhere. In his direction, there are gnomes, from whom, most likely, comes the foul smell of dirt and something else. One of the men looks away, not even having time to realize what is happening. All actions occur at the speed of light, without even leaving the right to appeal. A bunch of golems go into battle. They clearly want to do something, but it is extremely difficult to understand the true motive given all the data. The blonde does not intervene, standing like a frozen statue. Trying to scream to be let go, the gnomes continue to resist when they try to send them away. Realizing that there is no longer any point, Mr. breaks into a scream, announcing that he will take revenge on Ik, who stands calmly with his eyes wide. It seems that wild screams are heard throughout the kingdom, which can be heard from all corners of the planet, despite the direness of the situation. The gnome, completely cleaned and braided, stands in front of the mistress. They bathed him and did everything to ensure that he no longer smelled the way he did before. Sniffing a little, Rose feels a pleasant floral aroma that spreads throughout the estate. Trying to justify herself, the girl asks for forgiveness. After all, the pebbles only became like this recently because they are watching over children. They are sensitive in matters of hygiene. Not understanding what the problem really was, Mr. repeats the same thing, believing that gnomes always live and smell like this. Without delving into this topic, he asks to tell what exactly they need. Introducing herself, the girl bows, announcing that she is the young ruler of the Kingdom of White. She invited them all to discuss several requests she had. Folding his arms over his chest as if in a protective gesture, the man snorts, not understanding what kind of ruler she is. He thought that everyone here was in charge of a wizard who sent a letter and brought them here. Still without changing the topic, the guy asks, "Isn't the lady too young to conduct normal, full-fledged negotiations with representatives of other lands?" Getting up from his seat, the magician begins to be indignant. After all, little people cross all boundaries, and in this case, they are not welcome here. However, the maiden interrupts, assuring that everything is fine and she does not need help. Smiling, the beauty understands everything, because most likely the gnomes do not want to talk about business immediately after arriving. She suggests resting and exploring the kingdom today, and starting everything else tomorrow. The girl suggests that everyone take a walk together so that Mr. Knocker alone won't be bored. He will definitely like it in the kingdom, and without any buts, because the lady is firmly convinced of this. Walking across the bridge, the dwarf looks around, followed by the princess and Egom. He notices how small this area is. It cannot be called a province, and if there were more buildings made of snow and ice, it would definitely be better. Hurrying behind the man, the girl agrees with everything. She talks about what good advice she receives and how happy she is to have such a guest on the estate. Walking past the forge where they are working, the guy suddenly freezes and calls out to the worker. He notices some kind of violation and therefore cannot simply remain silent, leaving the work without correction. As he approaches, he speaks about the incorrectness of the work. You can't hold the hammer like that, because then the metal will simply jump, thereby causing more harm than good. Running up and taking the hammer, the dwarf literally jumps up, hoping that he will help and do all the work for the good-for-nothing guy. He only allows it to be done and steps aside so as not to interfere. Perhaps, trying to somehow smooth out and ease the situation, the employee admires the gnome. He even has his own way of holding a hammer, which is wonderful and incredible. Turning away, he asks not to praise him. Starting his work and simultaneously explaining something about the flame, the man notices absolutely nothing. He doesn't even see how the man winks at the girl. She planned everything perfectly. The magician turns to ask how exactly the girl planned all this, and why, to which he receives a simple answer. The lady just knew that Knocker would not be able to pass by. Since you have to adopt something from your skills, then you need to adapt to other people, and this is a fact. Now they will be able to raise the mood of the head, and tomorrow it will be possible to move on to negotiations. It's evening outside. It's the end of the week, so there are quite a few people around, but all the pubs are doing great. You can hear shouts that order you to drink to the bottom. One of the main people laughs while holding a mug. A yellowish liquid splashes there, which gives off an aroma. It's quite cold here, but the drinks are amazing. Laughter spreads throughout the entire bar. The waitress and part-time owner comes up to the table to say that you can drink as much as you like. There's enough of this goodness in white, so why not? Needless to say, no one bought it due to its high alcohol content, so it just sat in the refrigerator. Placing the cup on the table with a distinctive clinking sound, Knocker enjoys the atmosphere. There is not much alcohol in the world that would please gnomes and then make them feel good. People here work hard and drink well, which means this place is not as bad as it seemed at first glance. Something very close to the table attracts attention. Something white moves near the legs, trying to escape to do something. At first glance, the particle appears to be floating, but this is all due to the effects of the drinks. Leaning over, the gnome asks the little man where he comes from and why not have a drink with him. The mind has long been clouded, and therefore such questions seem clearly real. Raising the golem, the man wants to continue the conversation about everything that is happening. He is obviously bored and wants to discuss some business with someone over a glass of beer. Bringing the figurine closer to his face, the man seemed to be too moved, so he began to cry. The baby doesn't even have a face. He cannot speak, much less even drink water. Making sounds, the golem tries to escape, but all attempts are in vain. The brunette asks him to trust him and not to worry about anything. He will do everything in the best possible way without any hiccups. Taking a small file out of his pocket, the guy bends over a pebble. As soon as the work begins, screams are heard from the pub all along the street. A boy in a dragon kindergarten cries after being given a toy or something upset him. Everyone around is wondering what the reason is. The golem turns out to be in the hands, which is a bone of discord. He still makes the same incomprehensible sweet sounds, but his face now looks more like a warrior from some clan or one of the dwarves. Holding the toy in his hands, the baby continues to sob without stopping, while the princess comes closer and names the price, which is 10 million gold. The dwarf jumps up, hearing such absurdity, and asks why such a price. If it were made of pure gold, it would cost 200 gold, and no more, however. Interrupting, the lady, remaining rebellious, announces that she named the price only for the material. Surprised even more, Mr. Knocker asks if it is made from dragon teeth or something else valuable, as if mocking, but Ika confirms the words without a twinge of conscience, because it is true. It is made from Red's teeth, and is his favorite golem. He always carries it with him, and therefore it acquires even greater value among the dragons in the area. Frowning, and at the same time being under terrible stress, the man chuckles, because this pebble is not the only one in the whole wide world, which means that you can find a replacement for it, or at least not pay so much money. Bowing her head, The lady assures that everything is fine, and she is not asking for that amount of money right now. In return, the gnome can simply teach the local people swordsmanship and blacksmithing skills. Moving away and smiling as if peacefully, the girl changes the subject, giving him a choice, because if he wants, they will always accept the money in full without any delay. This will help the kingdom. The magician is thinking about something, but understands that this outcome is the best. They wanted the dwarves to provide mana for research, but that would also be quite good. Without thinking about refusing, Knocker mentions that he has long wanted to try it. Turning back to his interlocutors, the man announces his decision. This is not a bad condition, but you will need to provide everything necessary to make your work comfortable. It may be that Mr. is simply reluctant to cooperate because the lady is too young, but this could be an investment in the future. The princess will never forget the wisdom shared with her. White will become stronger, thanks to which he will always be able to come to the rescue. It sounds really tempting, but apparently the head cannot make decisions alone, so he will announce his answer after consulting with other dwarves. As if by chance, the wizard says that others from the clan said that if they supply free booze, the empire can do whatever they want with them. Jumping with indignation, Knocker wonders what kind of scoundrels these guys are. Snow, without letting go of the baby, looks at the couple in surprise. I can't believe that gnomes will also live here now. Dragons and gnomes have never lived on the same land, but now everything will change dramatically. Ida chuckles, but then continues to speak for her friend. Previously, she did not understand why such a person as Yggdrasil was here, but now everything is clear. He has his own special mission. The man wants to raise a real ruler. It is not the time for him to rule the kingdom when the empire has an heiress, so this situation is quite transparent. Rose White will be a wonderful lord of the White Settlement, in which life will bloom with joyful people around. No one will know troubles and misfortunes in this kingdom after everything that has happened. It will be quite difficult to make this place a utopia, but it is also quite possible no matter what. You shouldn't think about the future when you have such a wonderful housewife. It's midday outside. The bright sun is shining, bathing everyone around with warmth. This is clearly not enough to melt the ice, but such warmth is pleasant to the soul. Arthur knocks, and then, walking into the room, says that Mr. Yggdrasil asks to go into the living room for negotiations. The girl freezes, asking again, because she had already completed all the work and was about to go to bed. Without expressing any emotion, the man speaks the information he knows. He sent a letter to the magic tower with a request to send a new wizard to the province. Someone responded in record time and is waiting for the queen. Freezing as if she had been turned into an ice statue, the girl blinks her eyes in surprise. She didn't know about the new wizard and didn't allow such amateur activities, so it seems strange. A second later, the lady was already blown away, as if by the wind. She runs down the corridor and then throws open the door to the office, shouting the magician's name, because she urgently needs to know all the details. Smiling and remaining completely calm, Ig rejoices that Her Highness has arrived. They interrupt him right away, because the maiden said that new workers are not needed. In such a small place, 2 wizards are already too many. Lately the guy has too much work because he's given too many tasks, and the princess herself is completely overwhelmed. Sticking out her finger, the beauty does not listen, because these are just excuses. The young man is trying to throw off responsibility. Bowing his head in feigned weariness, the magician almost cries as he talks about how tired he is. Working like a magical robot, he cannot withstand this, but the girl really does not have the money for another wizard in the estate. The skirmish is interrupted in its midst. A man's voice asks you to listen to him and stop right now. Attention has been attracted, which means you can safely act. Without turning around, trying not to show his face, the young man asks if they will hire him if he says that he can see the future. There's nothing he didn't know was coming. You can always predict any events in this life. The girl freezes, asking if this is true. She expected anything, but definitely not such an answer, because she had never heard of anyone being able to predict the future. Still, showing his face, the guy allows you to see his light and clear facial features and eyes red as wine. He repeats what he said a few minutes ago, one more time for good measure. It sounds strange, but the young man died one day, and when he opened his eyes, he found himself in a tower. He himself has not yet been able to figure it out and understand what's what, because he only has partial memories. The eyes become sad, but no tears are visible yet. Without stopping, the boy continues his story. He definitely remembers one important detail, because in the future, the whole world will be engulfed in an all-consuming fire. The girl's eyes widened in surprise and fear. The guy heard that the kingdom was looking for personnel, and he thought that he could find answers to his questions here. This is an important part of his plan. Bowing, the blonde boy asks if he will be hired at the castle. He really needs this, and there is no such thing that he wants to be anywhere else or serve someone else in another kingdom. Raising one of her eyebrows, as if in a silent question, the princess quietly says that she wants to check if it is true. She was clearly interested. Ika is right about this, but everything that happens, and the story is extremely difficult to believe even with double-checking. Trying to promote his friend who was sent, the magician assures that even without his story, the boy is still a fairly strong wizard from the magic tower. The answer will remain just as cold, although the queen is right. She can't spend her treasury just because of the blonde's whim. Giving up, the young man understands that most likely no amount of persuasion will work. He smiles as he talks about taking him on as a student. This mage will achieve a lot and should get all the answers, so this is a pretty good option. Turning to James, he asks if he still wants to work here. Without a salary, it will be worse, but still not bad. Jumping up, the boy rejoices, because this is a great honor. Sighing, the girl understands that this is somewhat reminiscent of signing a contract with a free slave. James continues to thank Yggdrasil for his kindness, although he simply wants to work less. The young man introduces himself once again, because it was not previously mentioned that he is an airbender. Reacting warmly to such impulses, the main character happily accepts him into white, promising that everything will be fine. Turning around and heading towards the door, Rose says that the magician is now staying with Ig because she still has other things to do. We urgently need to discuss something with Ida, who should be free at the moment. Letting go of the Lord, the man turns to Arthur, asking him to take care of the princess properly. She must remain safe and calm. Walking along the corridor, the girl tries to carefully pick up the hem of her dress so that it does not drag along the floor and interfere with her fast walking. The face and expression on it do not bode well. Well, it's interesting why in James's story, the world seems to be consumed by fire. Trying to drive away bad thoughts, the beauty asks herself not to think about it. Here and now, there is only white, which is worth protecting and promoting in every possible way. While in the hall with Ida, who is diligently mixing something, both listen to the dragon. She bought an unusual tea especially for a friend. Now all that remains is to brew it, and then you can drink it. A beautiful rose blooms in the mug, exuding a wonderful aroma. This flower really looks great, but the smell is even better. The Virgin invites Arthur to try it too, at least a sip. The girl straightens her hair and then announces the statistics. Trade is going well, and by the way, many tribes from other settlements are interested in things from the white. To prevent the use and restriction of handicrafts, tools and carriages made in Vaith during the Imperial War, the lady asked ILI to find possible sales of items outside the settlement. Thanks to her interlocutor, the beauty smiles, because they really helped her, and all this will only benefit the Empire. The answer does not keep you waiting, because it was nice to do something good for your city and everyone living here. The mug ends up near her mouth, while the blonde finally takes the much-desired sip of the warming drink. The taste is even better than the smell and sight. It's impossible to tear yourself away, and it seems that you could drink about 20 of these mugs. The tea party is interrupted because Ida says that she heard some conversations outside the Empire. These rumors are spreading from people who live outside the province. Something is happening outside now. Nobody knows what exactly, but information is known that there are already victims of such a strange impulse. This remains to be seen. Freezing, not daring to utter a word, the beauty tries to digest such complex information. It sounds like a terrible word, because when people die, that's the worst thing. The brunette also sits in complete silence, not daring to say anything. Usually he tries to intervene, especially when it comes to something delicate, but this time he decided to do something stranger. Pushing forward a paper with something written on it, the woman notes that she thought that the princess would be interested, so she took out a list of residents who left white and the victims who were identified with detailed information. Taking the list in her hands, the lady begins to fluently read the names and the entire reliable article. There are still many people whose whereabouts are unknown. Of course, it is not that the queen remembers every single one, but some can be identified. The girl interrupts her words, because she remembers all the people who left here. She remembers every single one, because she herself saw off before they left the estate and the city itself as a whole, leaving her alone. She really wanted to stop them, but she couldn't. Even small children wanted to leave. Crying, one of the boys said that he was leaving not because he hated White, but because of poverty. Having earned some money, he would return if the lady would take him back. The lady really only wanted all her people to be happy. The gaze becomes glassy, freezing somewhere in the middle of the page. One of the names is the most familiar. It is none other than Tom who is best remembered. Bowing her head, the girl talks about the place near the magic tower. There is a town there called Florence. One friend said that slavery was rampant there, but this province was where the people from White moved to. The whole scheme is quite simple and transparent. If Imperials cannot pay taxes, they become slaves. They don't have much choice or anything they would like to change. Intervening in the conversation, the brunette asks why people couldn't pay, frowning. Everyone had a false, excellent education, but why then do they have a problem with work in this situation? There are not many jobs for foreigners, and, as it turns out, they don't want to give them to people from other settlements. The tax has been increased for them, so they cannot pay it. They also introduced a tax for non-payment, which adds up to form unrealistic amounts. They became slaves, like objects to be treated as the owners wanted. Arthur butts in again, reminding them that they paid the moving fee. Such an attitude is completely impossible and is not subject to any legal framework in such a world. This all sounds too strange. A king's duty is to protect his country, and a lord's duty is to protect his people. If this cannot be done, then there should not have been any rights to them. The girl's fist clenches, listening to all this. This is more like a robbery invented by nobles who cannot do their jobs, which means there will be time to teach them how to do it. They can't take advantage of people for free just because they don't know how to do something themselves. There is a magic ball in the room that glows, emitting someone's voice from there. He asks if James has managed to gain a foothold in White. You need to be vigilant. There should definitely be no problems with the rest, which means everything will be fine. The man mentions the task that was issued specifically for this guy. He must do this for the sake of the Mage Tower, as well as for the sake of the entire empire as a whole. Now the responsibility lies entirely with this young man. The voice breaks while the magician says goodbye, asking that he not be let down, and that everything be done in the best possible way. The blonde's eyes close, as if transporting him to another reality. A huge dragon, emitting fire straight from its mouth, is trying to burn everything around. No one is spared, even if many beg for mercy. It seems unreal, but also absolutely scary, like something incomprehensible. The boy's eyes widen in horror. He wants to cry because neither he nor the other magicians are able to do anything, thereby preventing such a terrible situation that happened just recently. Trying to escape from the tenacious clutches of his dark thoughts, the guy grabs his head with his hands. Now, this is not the most important thing, because if he manages to pull off the whole plan, this will not happen, and he will no longer have to fear the end. They stand behind their companions. James tries not to show it, while some kind of skirmish is actively taking place there. He never interferes in other people's conversations, especially those that include the princess. Already tired of explanations for the 100th time, the man repeats that it's not all that simple. They cannot simply enter someone else's territory. The kingdoms belong to the empire, and this makes everything much worse, leaving no point in thinking about it. Noticing a boy standing shyly in the corner, the girl turns, calling out to him and asking if he knows the town of Florence, which is right next to the tower. The answer turns out to be yes. Ig again calls out to the mistress, hoping that she will come to her senses and finally stop talking about any nonsense that is unnecessary to anyone. They interrupt him, agreeing, because the lady understands why the man is so worried. She will never contradict anything, but if they don't go, she will never be able to forgive herself for abandoning her people somewhere in another city with a life of slaves. Grabbing the guy's shirt, she turns to him, as if looking into his eyes. She no longer wants to regret anything and does not want to keep the burden in her soul, falling asleep with it until the end of her days. It's dark night outside. The trees seem to sway to the beat, being very close to each other. The rustling of leaves is heard somewhere in the distance, carried away by the wind. A monster is visible in the distance. The mouth opens with dripping saliva, allowing the animal to breathe deeply, emitting a terrible roar that overshadows any other sounds around. Passing by a stone, the wolf seems to notice something and growls more than ever. Sounds do not emanate, but the instinct never fails animals with such a refined sense of smell developed in deep nature. Grabbing his face, covering his mouth with his hands, the brunette almost cries because of the overtaking horror that consumes everything inside and his mind. The wolf freezes just a few meters from the poor guy, who is shaking, crying, but at the same time not making any sound so as not to catch the victim. The boy remembers his whole life. It would be better if the family did not leave. Even without money, they were all incredibly happy in Vate, no matter what. Without even thinking about how it will all end, the guy opens his mouth and begins to apologize out loud. He apologizes to his father and mother, as well as to Mrs. Rose. He could not keep his promise and return exactly as he would have liked. Just hoping for a quiet death at the hands of the monster, he closes his eyes, imagining how after this he won't have to worry about anything. A woman's voice is heard from the side, asking not to apologize, but rather to keep her word. Turning his head and moving his hands away from his face, the boy cannot believe his eyes and ears. He asks if it's true that the princess who appeared here is real, or if it's a hallucination. A squad consisting of Rose, Ig, and James arrived to rescue. Smiling, the girl says that she arrived to save Tom. She always remembered him and could not leave him alone in trouble. Memories, as luck would have it, plunge into the distant past. People are already starting to leave, and Mom and Dad are also long gone. This saddens the young lady, who quietly looks out the window, trying not to cry. Realizing that now is the time to ask a question of interest, the girl asks Ig if he has met her mother. She noticed something existing between them, but she wasn't sure. Approaching quietly, without any conversation or response, the man removes the crown from the head of the beauty, who does not understand what is happening, trying not to cry. Turning, she glares at the magician, not asking any more questions, knowing full well that she will definitely not receive a normal answer under any circumstances. The sad expression on the young man's face makes quite a lot clear. This cannot simply be passed over by eyes or ears. He is incredibly sad, not paying attention to his ward. So without saying anything, even on another occasion, the guy turns around and quickly leaves the room, leaving the blonde sitting completely alone. She can only watch the trail. Bowing her head and hugging her knees, the girl tries not to cry. She should pull herself together and not show her emotions, because the young man does not like capricious children. Now the girl has grown up and become a lord. She is forbidden to cry in any situation, no matter what. She must protect everyone and make sure her people are safe. Unable to withstand such pressure, the boy burst into a cry, being too joyful to see his mistress. He no longer hoped for anything, but now everything will change. Tears of joy freeze in my eyes. This noise prompts the wolf to pay attention. There is no longer just one individual, because now there are 3 of them, and all of them are boring into people with yellow evil eyes, waiting to attack someone and cause great pain. Lifting the boy closer and holding him close, the princess seems a little furious. He definitely shouldn't have shouted so loudly, thereby making the situation even worse than it was before. Even in the event of such a bad outcome, the lady has her trump cards up her sleeve. The hand contains bones that were prepared in advance. The woman calls out to the animals. Rising higher, she swings her arms and, as best she can, launches food somewhere forward in order to distract the animals at least for some time, which will be needed to escape. Everyone immediately starts growling and barking, and then picks up the thrown bones because they are clearly hungry. If there was no meat, everything would be much worse. The girl looks somewhere to the side, watching the monsters eat their portion. Tom turns to Rose, asking why she is here and what she left here, without any reason. Smiling her nervous smile, the girl remembers the words of the young man who promised to return a long time ago. But, unfortunately, this did not happen. She needed to bring him home, since he himself was not able to do it. Interrupting the conversation, a magician intervenes and says that they barely had time to arrive here. Having found the information, it became clear that the guy was sold to work in a mine, and such work could not end well. Bowing his head and trembling again, the boy tries to say something, but begins to stutter, realizing that it is extremely difficult. He really thought that he would die here without any right to escape and survive. Quiet gratitude makes the young lady's heart melt. She sees the meaning of the work she has done and cannot regret such a dangerous journey. The portal opens in a split second, and it is Ig who helped make it a reality. Entering the portal, the boy once again showers with gratitude when the girl asks him to return to White while she finds everyone else. Calling out to the dogs, the blonde offers to take a walk with her. They must agree, because eating just one meal doesn't sound like the most wonderful thing that can happen. Expressing her determination to win, the beauty promises that after the walk, she will take them to her place, where it is full of all sorts of goodies and wonderful bones with which you can eat to your heart's content. The dogs growl, trying to force the woman to work. It's quite difficult to obey, considering that you don't have much of a choice anyway. Bending over the floor, the girl tries to carefully, but at the same time thoroughly and quickly wash all the floors. People call her names from the outside, but the wolves still won't calm down. Double pressure seems to be the most merciless and successful for the young lady. An unpleasant-looking man grins, saying that he has the right to choose. If she doesn't want to be treated like a toy, she needs to pay taxes, and everything she's overdue needs to be paid too. One of the vassals stands holding a child in his arms, who is choking with tears. Still not stopping, the guy asks if the lady wants to see who can refuse faster, either she or his dogs. Horror and tears mix in the beauty's gaze. Without rising from her knees, the maid crawls up and grabs the robe of one of the men. She begs to spare the child. You can do whatever you want with her, but the child is definitely not to blame for anything in this regard. The main one grins again, saying that now it's too late to ask for anything. This will not have any effect and will not bear any fruit. It's all pointless. Several people burst into the hall screaming, and then a child appears in the magician's hands, who calms down a little and stops crying from the shock he experienced. Smiling a kind smile that radiates warmth, Ig greets the baby, who looks wide-eyed. They will not cause any harm, even under the most dire circumstances. The girl is confused, just like everyone else present. Mustache jumps up, asking who else they are, and what right do they have to ruin everything and break into the palace. Trying to appear friendly but using obvious sarcasm, Rose compliments the dogs, calling them too cute. She wants to cloud her mind, thereby deceiving. However, this is all a trick. 3 dogs appear behind the beauty, twice their size and looking more stern and angry. Her animals are much cuter, and she can attest to that. Jumping to the side, the man backs away, asking just one question, not for the first time. It is important for him to know where these wolves, who were supposed to be in the forest, came from here. The lady, taking advantage of the moment, jumps up from the cold cement and rushes towards the wizard, who has been keeping her child all this time. She can't wait, because she needs to check and make sure that everything is in order. Already very close to the blonde, the woman takes her baby back into her arms, while Yggdrasil declares that everything is completely fine, and the girl was not even afraid of anything. Turning to the brunette, who is carefully examining the animals, the queen assures that everything is fine, because dogs do not bite people. The exception is those who behave badly. Standing up to defend the kingdom and the animals that were actually stolen, the servants cry out that this is unrealistic ignorance. Those who entered allow themselves too much. Making the face of a person tired of everything, Rose sighs, talking about how much the local garbage allows itself, which complicates everything. Opening her eyes slightly, she shows all her composure. The voice drops a semitone when the princess orders the interlocutors to bite. A pack of wolves, as if on orders, bares its teeth and then begins to attack, not giving a single chance to hide from the omnipresent revenge.